All right, so let's talk about Blonde. Um, and this is going to be a very interesting conversation
Right.
to talk about with us, right? So what Blonde is about, right? Well, sorry, I will do the synopsis for this, right? But I'll do the intro as well, right? The preamble. So when the trailer actually for this dropped, right? I was well. First off, I was intrigued, right? I mean, for one thing, it was McGill, Ana de Armas,
Right.
playing Marilyn Monroe, and I couldn't even care less about. Well, she's Cuban, so why is she playing a white actress? It makes no sense. Ah. I,
Right.
I I don't care. I don't care, right? But for me, I just saw this as an opportunity for her to really let her acting talents like shine and just show off, right? Because I mean, she has been starring in some big films, right? Whether it's No Time to Die or Knives Out, or well, the sequel Glass Onion, which is supposed to begin before Christmas, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, she has been doing her thing, man. But here's where it's like, all right, big performance here. All right, this could be her opportunity to get an Oscar nomination, right? And maybe an Oscar win, right? And then I saw Written
Right.
NC-17, right? And I was like, um, something off with this, because I would never associate Marilyn Monroe biopic and NC-17. I would never, bunch those terms together at all, right? And like I'm not familiar with the director Andrew Dominic's work, right? I know that he did the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I know that's like a movie that a lot of people put up there as one of the greatest of all time. I still haven't watched it. I have a feeling I'll enjoy it, but I just never got around to watching it, right? Um, but still, the return was just weird to me, no? And then even weirder is a Netflix release now. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, all they putting big names into this thing and still giving it this kind of rating now. And I'll talk about the rating in my thoughts on the film, right? So yeah, I was like, because I was thinking Oscar, right? From the moment I saw the trailer and see it played, right? So the moment I saw that NC-17 rating there, I felt like, the film itself kind of shoot itself in the foot, because it's like,
Right.
yeah, because like very, 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 very rarely would an NC-17 movie ever get nominated for an Oscar or even win. I think one of
Right.
the rare,
Midnight
one of the
Cowboy.
only sole
Midnight Cowboy.
examples of this is Midnight Cowboy, right?
Right.
Which came out in '69, right? Um, but yeah, boy, I had my doubts. So going into this, in the back of my mind, I was just like there, like watching this thing, like, all right, I really want to see where the NC-17 come into this, right? But
Yeah.
what the
It's
show is about,
pointless.
yeah, what the show is about in a nutshell, right? It's technically a biopic on Marilyn Monroe, but it's
Right.
more of a psychodrama. That's the best way to really
That is
describe
right.
it, right?
Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah, because it's not really so much about her rise and fall in Hollywood, right? But it's more about the trauma that she was subjected to at a very young age. In a first off, in a really like unsettling opening sequence, or I should say, first act actually, involving her mom, right? Who we learn, had mental illness, right? She was suffering from mental illness, right? Um, and then it just kind of leads into her going into Hollywood, right? And then we just see, just basically how she had to, sell herself basically to kind of get ahead, right? Whether it's being a pinup girl or having to, do some things on the side basically to get ahead. It's that kind of show, right? But
Yeah.
how the movie frames itself is that we basically kind of seeing the world or seeing life through her eyes, right? Through Marilyn's eyes, right? Because and ever so often they will touch on like how she still relates to her mom, but really it's all about the father, right? Because early on we learn that the father wasn't there. We see a picture. I don't know who the person is. Like I don't know if he's supposed to look like a certain American actor or whatnot, right? But I'm not too sure, right? But yeah, essentially the mom says that this is your dad, right? And all through her life she's just been looking for a father figure. Never so often she would get what I assume are letters from her father, because you just hear like voiceover narrations from the father, just like saying, okay, just checking up on you, seeing how you're doing, all that kind of stuff. I don't like what you've been going through, yada yada yada, right? The point is, what this show really, really touches on is, yeah, just again, just the trauma that she is going through throughout her life, man. And even though she hooks up with a few men in her lifetime, right? And everything seems to be cool or whatnot. Something just kind of gets in the way. Some darkness kind of seeps into her life, and it just breaks her apart, right? And you really see also too how she views being a celebrity, right? There's numerous moments. I'll talk about the moments involving her just being paraded around or just
Right.
walking and just paparazzi and people just taking pictures or whatnot, right, for the news or whatnot. I just see how much of a toll that takes on her emotionally and psychologically. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not surprising. It just kind of ends with her more or less committing suicide, right? She
Right.
overdoses on pills, right? But yeah, the show in a nutshell is just seeing this psychological breakdown from her childhood to her death, right? And I'll stop here. So I have a lot to say on this, right? But Ricardo, take it away. I know you like to keep things short and sweet, but trust me, we're gonna be discussing this shit out of this for a while, right? But yeah,
Yeah. So
Ricardo, your thoughts on this
this
movie?
this felt like all right. So this felt like a mix of Pablo Larraín's Jackie and Fincher's Mank, right? More Mank
Yes.
than Jackie. However, you know what this remind me of? More and more think about it. Sucker Punch. That is what this remind me of.
Oh, okay. You mean the
Where
illusion of like escaping into one's fantasy because
right,
the
but
real
in
world
the
is
way
is
how
is, is
yeah,
cruel and dark.
exactly. But it trying to do like it's they're trying to do this. Oh well, look how we exploiting blah 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 and so and so. And then look how we exploiting this and women being exploited blah blah blah. But then you yourself exploiting the person that you're thinking because the movie itself very exploitative and like
It
I get what
is,
I get
yeah,
what you're
yeah.
trying to do, but like you're really sticking that landing to be honest. So let us be clear about that. Though. That is it is I okay, so I'm not too mad about it in terms of like its structure. I don't think it's like people are call it mean spirited or anything like that. No, my main problem is that it's very historical. I have a big problem with that, and it's not in a good sense at all. Again, it's kind of like Mank. Mank is kind of like borderline conspiracy territorial. This one has a very similar conceit where it's like, oh, that didn't happen, and no, it didn't. Like once you do these little simple little mental historic checks and you second guess yourself about the past and how Marilyn's life is like, yeah, but that didn't happen, and that is not the relationship with her mother. I have a whole list, and you could get away with that for some things. Like we're going to talk about that with another movie coming up. But this you definitely can't get away with it in terms of its conceit, and that is to me it's hard for me to like forgive something like that in this case. Um, so I can't say well this is real trash and I completely hate it or anything like that. But it just doesn't it falls flat. It is too long. Like let's be clear about that. So that is like a big problem on its own right there. And that is how I generally feel about the whole thing. It's like it trying to do a thing, it way less important than I think it is. Um, so that is how I feel about
All right.
it.
So allow me to begin, right? So going into this, I would confess I know little to nothing about Marilyn Monroe's backstory, right? I
Right.
know certain things about her. I know why she's a part of pop culture and her influence in Hollywood, during the 40s and 50s, right?
Right.
Um the one show that I really do know her for, and one it's actually a show that I love though, is Some Like It Hot from 1959, right? And they actually
Right.
do reference that like
Yeah,
in
like
the
we,
show.
I don't want to get into like the technical aspects of it. That is like a given. Like the technical aspect is fine. It actually looks good. Somebody like the replication scenes, like the replicator and that famous dancing scene with the red, with the pink dress. I forget the name of the movie.
Oh,
Um,
that's where she was doing the whole diamonds are girl's best friend. For the
yeah,
life of me, like, oh gosh, I know they said it in the film, but like I can't remember the name of the movie right now. I think it's called Gentlemen Before Prefer Blondes. That's the name of it. Gentlemen Before Blondes. That's what it is. Yeah.
right.
Um,
Stuff like that is impressive. Like it really looked like the real Marilyn at times. They well pulled out of it. Like, oh shit, they do some deep fake, yeah, all going on, boy. But it's still, stuff like that is. I'm not in the film for stuff like that. Like that is a given. In fact, it might win awards to be honest. For stuff like that. But again, the nature of it and the historicity is what kill it. Um,
yeah, yeah. So for me, right? What this show remind me of? Like, okay, so people will bring up a couple shows when it comes to this, right? So what do you mean shows you'll bring up? So I will just reference three films, right? But it'll make sense why I'm bringing them up, right? So first off is Repulsion, right? That is Roman Polanski's one of his early films,
Right.
actually owned it on Blu-ray, classic film, right? Where essentially you have this well, really attractive woman, but she feels trapped in this hellish world because she just doesn't like how guys are leering at her and ogling at her and whatnot, right? I just see how that breaks her down like mentally, right? Especially where she's in an apartment and she literally feels like she's trapped there, right? The second film I was thinking about is a Lynchian film, right? And yeah, a lot of
Right.
people
Right.
will make the reference to David Lynch when it comes to this. uh Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, right? Where
Right. 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 Right.
yeah, it's about a lot of things, but it's really about Laura Palmer, right? The woman who whose murder sparked the whole show that we know and love, right? But here you saw the last few days of her life, and you just see like how her life breaks down, and then when you get to how she actually gets killed, it's ugly, it's disturbing, and you just kind of come out of it just feeling like just shaken. You just feel like this person has gone through this brutal experience now, and you just feel bad about it. You know what I mean? And last film I'll bring up now is a little favorite of mine called Pink Floyd The Wall, right? I mentioned this years ago with what oh gosh, I was gonna say Movie Bob. Oh gosh, Channel Awesome did a terrible job of paying
Yeah.
homage to, right?
I remember
But
that. Yeah.
essentially in terms of you zeroing in on a celebrity who has gone through a lot of hell in his life, right? But it's the point that he kind of isolates himself from everyone now. He just kind of seeing everything through his eyes, right? But what I will give credit to this movie for, and it reminds me a lot of Pink Floyd The Wall, right? Is how it kind of blurs between memory and fantasy and reality. This kind of feels like you're in this intersection, so things just kind of blur from one event to the next. Sometimes they're in her head, sometimes it's from someone else's perspective. It just kind of blurs, right? So it just feels like this fever
Yeah.
dream that you're just watching, right?
Right.
True
But
her.
again, I don't mind you doing unreliable narration stuff. Like this show Miles Teller. Remember the Don Cheadle a Miles Teller vehicle. That was okay, right? And that was entirely um that was an example of unreliable narration because the character had a big drug problem and blah 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 blah. That's not what this did though. Like it just at least that's not what I gathered from it.
Right, right.
This just decide to like just tell this weird again. You say psychodrama, and I'm like yeah, kind of because if it was that, and it implies that Norma Jean had that was incredibly mentally unstable. That would have been fine. I wouldn't be mad at that. But that is not really what this did, to be honest. That is at least how I thought about it.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get, right. So for me, right, just to get the good out of the way, right. Ana de Armas, though, she does a great job in it. I
correct. I
can't
think
honestly say that is a stellar performance. I honestly can't even say it's Oscar worthy, right? But she goes all in on this boy. And I will talk about. Well, all right. I should say she's put through like a lot of demanding scenes though.
right.
A couple of which I had to bring up in this review here, right? But yeah,
I mean, some people think some people say she kind of overact. I thought it was all right. Like they find she crying too much, that kind of thing. I was like, nah, I don't have a problem with any other stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's
I
fine.
understand. Yeah. But she commits to it though. And she pretty much carries the film, right? Because you don't really have co-star. Sorry, you don't really have supporting actors, so to speak, right? Or co-stars. Sorry, you
Yeah,
just have
exactly.
supporting actors, right? So whether it's Adrian Brody who plays Arthur Miller, who
Right,
eventually
right,
marries her, or Bobby Cannavale. I didn't even expect to see him in this, right?
right.
Who plays
Joe DiMaggio, I think.
Joseph
Yeah,
DiMaggio.
right.
I didn't even expect to see Charlie Chaplin's son, and Edward G. Robertson's son. I didn't even like. I knew they had Sherman. I didn't know that they were a big deal, so to speak, right? But I mean, I know Edward G. Robertson in tons of movies, and Charles Chaplin, of course, right? But I didn't know that the children, that the boys, literally was in a relationship with
I,
Norma Jean.
again,
I didn't know that. I
I'm
didn't know.
not sure. I'm not sure if that is true. Like it's a lot of like a history in it. No,
Oh, right,
that's
right, right. And
again
it's only like after the fact I found out it's actually based off of a
a book,
well,
right?
here it is, a biographical fiction novel
Right.
from
So
Joyce
it's that
Carol
bullshit.
Oates, right?
It's
So
that bullshit now. So again
yeah,
they played fast and loose. Again, the analogy I compare it is a lot of Mank. It's very Mank, right? Mank is a movie that does plays very fast and loose with its narrative, and it kind of relies on this kind of weird conspiracy theory kind of thinking about it. At least Fincher's perspective, at least Fincher's dad. Remember, it was his dad was heavily involved in this, as it was now. So it's that it is this kind of weird stuff about how we're supposed to take history, but because it's psychodrama, you're not really supposed to read it. 'Cause again, the working comparison is Pablo Larraín, right, and Jackie. Very very apt comparison in my opinion. But that
mm-hmm.
to me did it much better. Like did the same conceit so much better in my opinion when that came out with Natalie Portman of just the
Yes.
claustrophobic nature of the whole thing. It's all of this, especially involving JFK. And while this, I don't know, this just isn't gelled together as well as it could have. I felt.
Right, right.
But
Well,
again, I know I'm not diving on this neck as much as other people seem to. 'Cause, like real people seem to be like real, diving on this movie neck now. And like,
mhm.
I have issues with it, but like I don't hate it in the same
Yeah,
way all they
I
hate.
can understand though why people will like despise this, right? Which I'll get into in a bit, right?
Right.
And also lastly, direction. I thought for what it was, Andrew Dominic did a good job though. There are some stylistic stuff. Well, I mean, like stylistic stuff to the point, like similar to Mank. It's almost like, all right, we're in this era, so we have to pay a lot of tribute to guys like Orson Welles and directors of from that era and whatnot. So we have to make everything look so stylized and look like it's something straight out of the 40s and 50s. I saw a little bit of French New Wave here or there. That's
Right.
like just these little stylistic flourishes here or there that at times it could feel like, all right, he just be like this cinephile, like, all right, well, I want to be artsy, I want to be, like, show off my cinephilia and whatnot. But
Yeah.
at times it could be a little distracting, like, all right, like, oh god, stop showing off that. Like, just tell the story. You don't need to show me set flashiness and give us some kind of style and whatnot. Just stick to the
Right.
story, right? But here's where I have the problem now: the story itself, right? So here's the thing. So those three movies that I mentioned, right? Those movies are like under 2 hours, right? So
Right.
like in the end, they depressed you and whatnot, right? But you kind of understand why they did, and you kind of move on from it, right?
Right.
Here, this movie is 2 hours and 43 minutes,
Length is
Chris,
a
or
bit much.
46
Yeah.
minutes,
Yeah.
and the length is
I
what
real feel a length.
kills
Yeah.
this movie, boy. My God, and I'll tell you why, right? I'll tell you why. Now, I understand it shows emphasis on, the dark side of Hollywood and how hard it was. But here's where the show could have been a lot smarter, right? Not about how hard it was to be an actress in the 40s and 50s in Hollywood. It's about how hard it was to be Marilyn Monroe dread.
You're right.
Because there's a moment where she mentions Jean Russell, right? I
Right.
believe she was in Gentlemen Before Prefer Blonde, sorry, right? Jean Russell was a sex symbol, actually, if you do your research, right?
Right.
But like I don't wanna like act like I know everything and whatnot, but I don't think that she went through half of the stuff that Marilyn went through in terms of like just being ogled and just being treated like a sex symbol and whatnot, right? I don't think she went through that though, but because it's Marilyn Monroe and because she had the voice and because she have the blonde hair doing all that kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, but how the show frames, like everybody just kind of zeroing in on her, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Again, I still coming across like you're right about it, but again, you're saying Jane Russell, not Jane Mansfield, you mean, or Jane Russell? Who's Jane
no,
Russell? I don't know.
oh gosh, let me see if I get the
In
name right.
Mansfield, you mean?
Oh, is it Mansfield? Is it Mansfield?
I know it's about Jane
Okay,
Mansfield.
no. All right. So I'm thinking of Russell, but Mansfield, you're probably right. It's probably Mansfield that was mentioned.
Okay.
No, actually, Gene Russell was in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, right?
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem. Right. Like, I really forget the details of this, to be honest.
Right, right,
Again,
right.
yeah, you had to kind of remember Hollywood trivia, history stuff now. So like,
That's the thing.
and it's
Yeah.
hard for me to care about that. So, and again, because they're playing with history, and again they do it. And to me, there's so much mank in this now. In that sense, now it's hard for me
You're
to
right.
care.
Yeah. Where what we mean, folks, is that it feels like you have to be like this diehard cinephile and you have to know everything about Golden Age Hollywood, sorry, to understand everything. Because no, the show is not going to stop and tell you, well, okay, this is why this movie mattered, and this is why this movie was an important part of Marilyn Monroe's career, right? They cannot trust that you're supposed to know all this stuff, but believe me, half the people going into the show will have no idea, right? They might just know some like it hot, and maybe that
Right.
I didn't even know the movie that still to this day I don't even know the movie where she was walking and it was by the whole subway area and the breeze blew up and she just went up. Still to this day I don't know what that movie is from, But
That was a
that's
movie,
like
or that was like a actual a photography event. I forget what it was.
no, that was from a movie. That was actually from a movie.
Okay, I forget.
Yeah, but for
Okay,
the life of me, oh, okay, I read it up. Is the 7 year itch? For the
right.
life of me, I still have not watched this trailer. But yeah, again, you know what I mean? You just have to do your research going in, right? But anyway, but just to touch on the length, boy, why you really feel the length though, is that all right? I understand what the show is trying to say, right? It was hard to be Marilyn Monroe. People, when I say people, I mean mostly men, and just how the Hollywood system was back then, right? It was all about, oh, you're just eye candy, and we just want to exploit you, and blah 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 blah, and all that kind of stuff, right? But and then also too, the show also wants to show you the dark side of being a celebrity, right? So again, there's moments of her, going out and walking into movie premieres, and there's like tons of photographers around and all that, right? But the show just gives you these moments over and over and over. And while I was watching this, I legit felt like this show was just beating me over the head, just trying to tell me the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it sucked to be Marilyn Monroe. It sucks to be Marilyn Monroe. It just beats you over the head again and again with this way. To the point that, yeah, while I was watching this, I was just like, I just was not enjoying this movie at all. It was just
Yeah.
depressing, man. But in the worst way, that in a okay, this is wrong and this is what we should learn from it. But no, and this is where the whole exploitation aspect comes into play, right? And this is what makes this show so difficult to really talk about, right? Because you're literally seeing a character, right? A real life figure, Dread, just being tortured, just being mentally tortured and physically
Yeah.
tortured, actually, throughout the entirety of this movie, Dread. And they paint this as a biopic, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
here's the thing, like it's not nothing new in terms of that. I mean, another example, true. What's love got to do with it, right?
Right.
Very
Right.
uncomfortable movie, right? Of course, with
Right. Right.
Tina Turner, right?
Good
But at least in
comparison.
the process, at least in the
It tell a
process,
story.
right?
Yeah.
It told a story. One, you saw what it was, how it was that how Tina Turner rose to stardom. You could tell that she was enjoying when she was on stage, when she was in the studio making music, right? You got moments of joy when she was singing Rolling Down the River and all those great hits, right? Here, where the show feels, boy, is that for most of the behind the scenes stuff that you see with her, right? Perfect example, boy. And this moment really felt like a slap to the face to me, Dread. Some like it hot, boy, where she's doing the sequence where she's singing, I want to be loved by you, just you and nobody else by you. I don't even know the name of the damn song, right? And then you literally see Billy Wilder, right? That actor playing Billy Wilder, right? Legendary director, right? And then like off like when you yell cut and she's like, fuck this movie and fuck you, and she just walks out. Just storms out angry, Dread. So what makes it sad for me now is that as somebody who actually loves that film, Dread, right? This is where the movie kind of just shoots itself in the foot even more, right?
Right.
So now I'm just gonna be looking through Marilyn Monroe's filmography now, seeing all these scenes and seeing all these films and performances that she was in, right? And she's on screen and she's acting, right? You could doubt for days whether she could have act or whether it's just she was going off as she looks and she
Right.
personality
Right.
and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
But she was acting, right? Now I'm gonna look at these movies now and think, well, now I can't even like those shows anymore because Andrew Dominic and Blonde tell me that she was just being exploited literally throughout the entirety of her career. So how can I watch this performance now and be like, well, yeah, she loves what she's doing because the show telling me the opposite. Show
Right.
is basically telling me no, she didn't like a single aspect of her career of acting of singing because
Right.
all true is just y'all just making fun of me because of my looks and because I sing, and y'all just making fun of me at my back and fuck y'all. That's what the show just keep hitting you over the head, Dread. So yeah, I sorry, it just kind of makes you like retroactively not want to check out Marilyn Monroe's work now. And then even worse now, because she is just basically the victim throughout the entirety of this movie, you kind of don't care about her near the end, and that's really unfortunate because you just see her just going through hellish moment after hellish moment, right? Whether it's psychological or sexual or whatever it is, right? To the point that by the time but I won't lie though, the last moment involved, well, before she kills herself though, it involves Charlie Chaplin Jr. That's all I'll say. It took me like a minute to pick up what happened, but I won't lie, that was a gut punch, but that was a serious,
Right.
serious gut punch. But the show very makes it very crystal clear how much of a gut punch that is. I wouldn't say how, right? But yeah, boy, you just see this woman go through the ringer, and she just kind of ends it all because it's all meaningless and there's no happiness, and it's all in the pursuit of a father figure. And I couldn't find it, Dread. You just basically being beaten down by this movie, Dread, to the point that you just don't care anymore. It's just like you've just been a victim throughout. You really stand up, you really do anything, you really fight back.
Yeah.
At least in What's Love Got to Do with it, Tina Turner fought back, right? Nah, I mean, Marilyn just kind of gives up and just takes everything, right? I'll talk about the NC-17 return in a bit, and then we'll get to your final thoughts, right?
Right.
Just kind of just takes everything, man, and that's the film. And you give us this for 2 hours and 46 minutes. I mean, it's overkill, man. It's just too much, right? Now, to touch on the NC-17 rating, right? So, me, while I was watching this, right, like, I was observing, the little sexual content here or there. They actually have Ana de Armas be topless in certain scenes.
Yeah.
I saw a couple
They overdo
of
it.
female movie reviewers, like, criticizing the movie for doing this.
Yeah. It was a real exploitative. Yeah,
It was though. Like
Yeah.
you see it 1, 2, 3 times, like, all right, okay, but
Yeah, enough.
do it over and over and over and
Yeah.
over and over
It's
and
a
over.
little ridiculous, I
Especially
think.
the third act, boy, they just went nuts with it. Right? Like
Mhm.
even to a point where you see her fully naked, right? But whatever, right? So I did like, well, it's nudity, right? I mean, that's not really a reason to rate this thing NC-17, right? Now I have to get a couple of slight spoilers here, right? So there's
Right.
one moment involving an abortion that she take, right? I don't know
Mhm.
if the reason had to do with the abortion, first of all, right? But it
I
is
I
literally
I I think I
an
know what he.
interior shot of it. No, I know what the
Right.
scene is. I'm gonna get to the scene, right? But
Yeah.
people saying that that another scene that earned the rating is that abortion scene, right? But there's
Right.
another like painfully uncomfortable one which I'll get into after the big scene, right? So the big scene, the one that everybody gonna talk about and label this thing as exploitative, right? Involves her and the president, right? JFK, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Now talk about subtlety, right? But I'll go into what you're saying earlier about whether we should believe what we're seeing here or not, right? Because just how this plays out just does not feel real to me at all, right?
Right.
Sorry, I just but I'll explain why, right? So essentially what it is, right? So the show don't even touch on the whole famous, happy birthday, Mr. President thing, right?
Right. Right. Which I thought they would
Context.
have to, and they didn't
Give
do.
us context, like
Yeah.
how it happened, right? All in the show is just, she lost her child, and it's implied that she and Arthur Miller broke up because of what happened now. So she's on a plane and she doped up on meds and whatnot, and then somebody had to like literally carry her out of the airplane, right?
Right.
Essentially, it was for her to go and meet the president, right? That's what the show telling us, right? So limo and shit, right? They say that, oh well, the president is in his hotel room, right? So please don't cancel me, listeners. Please don't cancel me, right? But I just ask it for context, right? You as a celebrity, right? Could is being told that the president want to see you in a hotel room. And we've seen earlier on how you feel about being in the spotlight and cameras in your face and all the abuse and all that kind of stuff you've been going through from Hollywood and whatnot, right? And you hear that the president wants to see you in a hotel room, Trent.
Right.
Red flag should be going off one time. Alarm
Right.
should be going off one time. And yet the show just kind of frames it like, oh, I'm high and I'm drunk and so literally you have a scene with these two Secret Service guys literally not dragging her, but kind of carrying over into the hotel room, right? So now we get to the hotel room, right? President Day lying down on the phone, he watching some sci-fi movie, right? And talk about subtlety, boy. Talk about subtlety, right? So you're seeing,
Rockets and
flying
yeah,
rockets
yeah,
and
so good.
the monument and all that kind of stuff in Washington D.C., right?
Yeah,
Real,
yeah,
real, 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 real phallic symbols and all that kind of stuff,
you're right.
right?
Yeah, usual
Talk
bullshit. Yeah,
about subtlety, yeah? And it's just literally here on the phone, and oh my god, like I had this thing on subs, right? So the person on the other line talk about, you've been hearing on the news about, you've been involved in these affairs with these women and blah 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 blah, right? And it's a made up parrot that she hearing all this too, right? And he like denying all this, like, no no no, I didn't do that, right? I just kind of watch it. She like, yeah, well, come on, and essentially what we get here, folks, is no, it starts off actually, sorry, as a hand job scene, and then
yeah,
it turns into a blow job scene, right? And I'm watching this scene, I'm watching this with the NT-17 rating in my head, right? I'm wrapping up in a bit, right?
right.
And I'm watching this carefully, like, all right, I could see why they slapped the rating on it, right? But for me, maybe I just approve it, I don't know. Um, I was expecting something way more explicit though. Like I was expecting that you'll actually see, the member, if you will, right? The camera is just so close up to
Yeah,
Anna's face there. But you could tell she is actually doing the act, right? You could see that, right? But like I thought you would have seen everything then. That would have been the reason why people were at an uproar, right? And then the scene kind of ends, and then they had
yeah,
to go out to just kind of cut back to the TV. It's the explosions and the
yeah,
spaceship flying. I mean, again, subtlety, right? And then afterward, the scene basically ends where, like, literally, the president grabs her and it cuts to black. Sorry, feeds to black, and it's implied that yes, she was raped, right?
right.
So they go even further, Dread. Like it's funny. There's GFK, Dread. I was thinking this is some Oliver Stone GFK type of
You
shit,
know,
right? Let's
yeah,
go as far as saying that she own house, Jed, right? And while she is sleeping, some people from the hired by the government sneak into her house, capture her, bring her into some hospital somewhere in God knows where, and literally suck out the sperm from inside her she. And when I
okay,
see that, I was like, really, movie?
yeah,
This is where we go in, movie. This is where we go in, movie. This is where we go in. And they do the whole internal shot of like the tubes going inside and and the show just again with the whole dream like aspect of the movie, and she was saying like it's all a dream, and she's not sure if it's a dream, right? So I don't know if it's a dream, if it's all in her head, but the way how it's framed, it's clear that they want us to believe in this conspiracy theory. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but my God, man, that's a huge, huge, huge stretch, right? But
yeah,
yeah, clearly that's why they rate this thing NC-17, right? Now, to the show's defense, they might say, well, no, we really, really need to show you, Dread, just how bad it was to be a woman, right? Sorry, to be Marilyn Monroe. Not a woman, to be Marilyn Monroe, Dread. But that's, to me, that's just taking it way too far, man. That's just taking conspiracy theories and just kind of framing it in such a way like, no, we just really need to show just how victimized Marilyn Monroe was in her career, man. But nah, that was just way too much. Why it almost took me out of the show, but because of the conspiracy theory nature of that scene, I just couldn't buy it. And even like I said early on, no context, Red. Why did she go to the president? Why the president call she all of a sudden? The way how the show frames is like president was just horny this one day. Is like, all right, just get in touch with Marilyn Monroe. I want to see she because I want to have sex with her. That's how the show frames it, right?
yeah,
And you expect me as a viewer to buy into this? Nah, man, hell no, right? So in closing, I get that well I would say because I see well it's funny because I actually watch a few reviews of this, right, from women, and some women actually like despise the film because of the exploitative nature of it, right, and I totally understand why, right. And for me, I do feel like it does feel exploitative, right, but not in the sense of, oh, we just want to see Marilyn Monroe be a sex symbol and be topless and all that kind of stuff, but more like we just want to show this person being brutalized over and over and over.
yeah,
But where the film flounders now is that the show is just so goddamn long now and
yep,
just relies so much on the same imagery, same type of imagery, so I mean the same notes, same themes being hit over and over and over and over and over. Sorry, Dread. You just kind of get numb to it. You just stop caring, Dread. I came out of this depressed. I was thinking about it actually for a while, but the more I thought about it, the more I just felt like the show just failed in terms of what its mission was, right? I will say near the like when the credits roll, they had a little disclaimer at the end, like, if you know somebody who's going through something, call this number or
Right.
foundation, whatever it is, right? Like a get. You want to touch on mental health, right? Okay. You want to touch about sexual exploitation in Hollywood back then. Okay, fine, right? But you could tell me it in a less depressing, much shorter, and you know, just show me what it was to not just stick to the dark side, because that's what the show's about. Just show me the dark side of everything. Because ultimately now when I look at a movie that features her, all I'm just gonna think about is just the abuse that she went through behind the scenes. Right? I know
As
that's
I
not what
say,
Andrew and them wanted, but that's what happened. Now I can't even watch something like it hot again, because I just be thinking about how she was mad and all that kind of stuff, and how she took it out on poor Billy Wilder. I'm just gonna think that every person who direct a film or who wrote a film starring she was monsters, and they all hate her, right? Because,
but
and
see,
again, I know that's not what the show trying to say, but sorry, the way how it just presented, it is like that.
right.
Sorry, man. This show could have been so much better, but it just
Yeah.
dropped the ball so much times, man.
To
So
me, to
rating
me,
wise, I'll just give this a 2.5 out of 5, man. See
right.
it if you want to. You might like it. I don't really see anybody liking this. If you enjoy it, if you could see it as a psychodrama and kind of look at it as some sort of a horror film, if you will, instead of a biopic, then I guess
Right.
you could appreciate it more. But for me, I went in to see a biopic, and what I got was just somebody just being tortured over and over and over, and just her being the victim, not really standing up, not really doing anything, right? And you can make the excuse, oh well, it's supposed to be a feminist, it's
Guys,
supposed to be a feminist film, and it's supposed to be a cautionary tale. Yeah, you want to call it feminist, right? So why am I seeing somebody being tortured for two
yep.
hours and
No, listen.
46 minutes
As
calling
I
this a
say,
feminist
as
film?
I say, as I say, it really feels like Sucker Punch or the Lifetime television movie stuff where Meredith Baxter Burney getting beaten to borrow from Jim Gaffigan. Somehow a woman is always being beaten on that network for some reason. But it's Lifetime television for women. It is overly exploitative, and I felt he tried to go out of his way to say, "Well, look how much I could show you a woman getting licks, boy." This kind of like
Oh,
this.
well, sorry to cut you there, Ricardo. Sorry it is, but what we in for those who haven't seen the film, Dread, we're not saying that she is being beaten up. We're
No,
more
no, no, no.
talking about like
It's abuse. It's
mental and
mental
sexual
abuse.
abuse. Like is really
Yeah,
done. Not so much physical, but you really do feel it though. Every
it's
time you see
mental
it.
abuse. Like I get that. Well, I say, but it have that same kind of version to like it's like Lena Waite and them now. It's that same problem now. You need to look how bad these people had it, and you just all you're doing is just you're not really doing or seeing anything interesting. What you're doing is just doubling dog on how bad it was apparently, right? Which is fine if you could put something to it, but it's empty nonsense. It's just empty calories in that sense now.
Yeah,
And
and another thing where the show could have had the opportunity to touch on, to be a little bit more aware, Dread, but it just kind of falls flat in this thread. We've gone past this whole. I would say like the Me Too movement is like the apex of how we've gone past that whole, I would call it a patriarchal system back in the days of Hollywood, right? Like
right.
that era is no more, Dread. So
But
at
that's
least
what
at
this
least the context of this film, you could kind of show why we should still care about what happened, right? And why we should still be aware of these things.
no,
But
but
no, they just play it straight. It's just she
yeah.
went through this abuse and she dies. The end.
Yeah, but that's why it come across so weird and kind of suspect because it's like, oh, he just trying to, well, out me to everybody with this now. That's how it coming across. Like look how feminist this is. I like,
It's
well,
still
okay,
exploitation, guys. It still
that's
is,
my
right?
problem exactly.
And I'll,
Again,
I'll just throw this last point, and then I promise I'll shut up, right? The best way to describe this movie, I know this is an extreme example, but think about it like this, right? Think about the original I Spit on Your Grave, right?
right.
A movie I saw once, I don't ever want to see it again. I think it's trash. It's utter trash, right?
Hmm.
But somebody could look at that now and say, well, it's exploitation, yes, but it's using that to touch on, sexual abuse, you know what I mean, and all that kind of stuff, what women went through back then. You want to frame it that way, fine. So why you had to show me the protagonist getting raped 3 times?
Right,
That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. But
right.
yeah, let me
Compared to
shut
say
up.
something like
Ricardo,
compare,
last word treated.
Yeah, no, compared to like, I mean, like maybe Bandit Queen like did a better job with that conceit, I suppose, or whatever it is. But my point is, again, how it come across is that it felt like a weird overcompensation. Like, like boy, these feminists, boy, they really want to see abuse and look how bad it was. And let me show them something. It's too much. It's spectacle in all the worst ways. It's style over no substance. Because they have nothing to say.
Agreed. They like the show oozes in style, like
Yeah,
visually,
it
but
have
no
no, but it,
substance.
it might have really nothing to say in terms of like, okay, well, other than how bad it was for Marilyn, we're trying to say here, we're trying to argue for. Again, the best comparison for me, and as a movie I defend and I like, right, is Pablo Larraín's Jackie, right, where that had something really interesting to say about her as a woman in the time of, and her having to deal with this tragedy and whatnot, and then everything being very claustrophobic and how it was shot. This just is the opposite. It just don't work at all. I don't look. I don't hate this as much as other people, but it just do tie together particularly well or work particularly well because yeah, he's just trying to out. I don't know what to say. Out abuse people with to show how hard women have it.
Or out exploit,
Out
like
exploit. I don't know.
yeah,
I
out
don't know
exploit.
what you trying to argue for and we trying. And the simple fact is that yeah, you have nothing to say. That's the main point. You don't really have anything interesting to see. So it's like, all right, well, that's it. Like, we're gonna do one way or the other. I don't know. Rating. Oof. I'm being super generous, but I'll give it a 5 out of 10 because yeah, it's very well made. But I'm being real generous with that because it just long and again, how is it indulgent? That is what I'm looking for.
Oh, yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. Yeah, this movie is
right.
indulgent
Yeah,
AF.
very indulgent. That's the main problem with it. Like,
Even
it's good.
even visually, it's indulgent. Like,
Yeah.
my god.
It's good and it's trying to do something, but like yeah, it's too much and none of it in that sense. But so yeah, that's my last point.
Yeah. Well, that's last thing I want to say though. It would be really shocking for me if this gets nominated for Oscar, boy. Like
I
if
can see
Anna de
I can see
Armas
it
gets
getting some
nominated for
yeah.
something,
I can
that'd
see
be
it getting
cool,
some
boy.
technical stuff, maybe.
Perhaps, yeah, like
Right.
more visuals than like for me, like I always thought where Mank really excelled was the sound, like the sound design for
Right.
that was great, right? But yeah, but I really do think that the NC-17 rating is yeah, pretty much like cancel those opportunities right there. Also the exploitative nature of the film do that as well. And yes, that scene that I mentioned, the president though, like yeah, I mean,
Rubbish.
yes, real conspiracy theory shit there, boy. But yeah, like the show just kind of make me retroactively not want to seek out Monroe's work, but because I feel like everything that she started, she was just going through a lot
Yeah.
of pain and hell and had no joy on screen, right? But I don't know, like I just felt like the show kind of like unintentionally tarnished the allure and
That was the idea.
the well sorry not no wait let me rephrase that.
That's what they
Yes,
were
the
going
show is
for.
meant to demystify the
Right.
image of Marilyn Monroe.
I
Yes,
get
yes,
that,
yes. But I
Like I
think
get
like in terms
yeah.
of like her work, like her career, like what she put out to the world, the films that she starred in now. Now I feel like I would just end up hating all of her performances now because
Right.
of what this show told me and beat me over the head with to tell me over the course of 2 hours and 46 minutes, right? So yeah, sorry, that's what the movie did for me, man. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's what it was trying to do. Well, look how again it's trying to out debunk, or I don't want to call it out demystify other people though. Well, the greatest of the sex icons. Yeah, and supposed to if you feel horny for she, yeah, weird monster. Look at you, right? That
Yes,
kind of thing. I don't know.
exactly.
That's what but it really go to it like yeah, but the problem is that they have too much ahistorical nonsense around that, and that's your problem right there. It's like okay, well, yeah, work to do in terms of like making that work now. It don't come together particularly well. As I said,
No.
5 out of 10 for my thing because it just me being and like me being generous. But whatever. Moving on.
Yeah, moving on.